Hi guys, welcome to part two of your Project 1 summary. And the next section that I wanted to talk about that needs a little bit of work, and just more of a reminder for some of you, but I think it's important to cover, is your reference section and how your reference section should have what we call a hanging indent. Now, what is a hanging indent? Well, if you take a look at the image that I put on this presentation right here, notice how this little section right here is my paragraph, and how the first sentence of the paragraph is flushed all the way to the left, right? And then you'll notice that the rest of the paragraph is indented. This is called a hanging indent. This is used specifically in APA for the reference section. Now, this is the exact opposite of what you deal with when you're writing your papers, because typically when you write your normal paragraphs, right, the first sentence is indented about 5 points, 5 spaces, and then the rest of the paragraph is flushed to the left. This is the inverse of that, and that's how your references should work. So one of the ways that you could do this and make your life a lot easier is in Microsoft Word. You go to the paragraph section, there's a little button that's called a launcher button. It's kind of like a little box with a little arrow. Basically, it's in your paragraph settings, but if you click on that little launcher button, it'll launch this dialog box that you see here, and there's a section that's called Indentation, where you can actually go into the special drop-down box and choose the word hanging and make sure that it's set to 0.5. When you click OK, it'll actually create, for anything that you've highlighted, this hanging indent, and you can do that just for the last section of your APA paper. Again, the hanging indent is only to be used, in this case, when we're dealing with the reference section of an APA paper. So hopefully that gives you some insight to work with. So the other issue that came up, and in some respects I want to say I'm a little surprised by this. And in some respects, I'm not surprised, because I know that for many of you, again, as I mentioned earlier, this is the first time that you are working with APA. And, you know, some mistakes are expected. And I wanted to kind of highlight a couple of things here, because some of the stuff that I saw just kind of made me go, okay, I could clearly see that you were trying. Many of you, all of you, and let me just put this out there. Many of you did an excellent job. I want to acknowledge that first and foremost. There were others who you made a great effort. We just need to make some slight little corrections, and that's what we're hopefully going to do here. So if you look at your at this example up here, this is your single phrase. And remember, the single phrase is when you have your citation at the beginning and you're mentioning the authors and the year. Keyword, and this is something that I just kept on banging my head when I saw this on some of your papers. If you are putting in a citation of an author, if you're putting in the author's name, the year should be immediately next to it. They should not be separate in most cases. Okay, I'm trying to simplify and generalize. There are some exceptions to that rule, but for our purposes, to keep this simple, again, this example, Newton, Tucker, Dawson, and Curry were the authors, and they're followed by, in parentheses, the year. This is called a single phrase because you start your sentence with a citation. Okay? Notice how in this example, there are no page numbers. There are no page numbers, 0 page numbers. Do you want to know why? Because these are not direct quotes. These are summarized, paraphrased, and therefore you do not need a page number. So save yourself the trouble of having to include a page number. Do not include it unless it's direct quotes, which we'll get to in a second. The second example below was what we call the parenthetical, and the parenthetical just simply means that your entire citation is in paragraphs. You have a left parentheses, a right parentheses, and everything related to your citation is inside. So it's in parentheses, aka parenthetical. And the parenthetical, notice in this case, has the author, et al., followed by the year. Again, no page number because it's not a direct quote. Also notice that in this sentence, and I'm going to use the example below down here, this last sentence right here, video is a powerful tool that supports learning, from Jimenez 2017. Now, I want you to notice something about this citation. Here's your sentence. It ends. Notice that there's no period there. Because when you're including an APA citation, the period goes at the very end. Not at the end of the sentence, but at the end of the entire sentence plus citation. So you put your sentence, followed by in parentheses the author and the year, and at the end of it, to signify this is all one cohesive thought and you're giving credit to that thought, all together, the period goes at the very end. Some of you were putting quotes at the end of the period, some of you had periods in front of the word learning, after the word learning, but before the citation. That is all wrong. It has to be like this. Sentence, citation, period. Sentence, citation, period. Hopefully that makes some sense. When it comes to page numbers, the only time I should see page numbers in this case is when there's a direct quote. Now, this first example here that I put in red here, past 2004, note how Piaget and Vygotsky created their learning theories partially in order to combat the gestalts. That's a direct quote. And notice that in this case, I have past 2004 as part of my signal phrase, and at the end of the sentence, again, notice the quotes are at the end of the last word, followed by the citation with the period at the end. Notice that page, by the way, is P period for a single page. If you're dealing with multiple pages, you would write PP dot 64. But do not include PG. Do not write the words pages. It should just be P dot 64, which represents page 64, with a period at the end. Now in this example, I purposely did this incorrect so that I can show you why it's incorrect. This is a direct quote. Learning in online environments can be a benefit, followed by that citation. Although you include the citation, this would be wrong. Why? Because there's no page number. So let's say this is supposed to be on page 2. So you have your author name, comma, year, comma, space, page 2. Just going to make this a little bigger to keep it all on one page. So again, if you're doing direct quotes, your sentence is in quotes followed by your citation with the page number. And we're including the page number because we have quotes. It's a direct quote, therefore page numbers must be included. Hopefully that makes a whole lot of sense. Again, read the APA book, folks. There is this wonderful, beautiful little chart that explains to you your basic citations. And I want to remind folks that when you start dealing with how to cite your authors, again, there's different rules. Again, if you have one author, the rules are pretty straightforward, right? If you're dealing with two authors, they're pretty simple. Things start to change when you get into works of 3 authors or more. And I want to highlight this because this came up in a couple of your papers. You'll notice that if you have 3 authors or more, the first time you write them all out, and this is from 3 to 5 authors technically, followed by the year. The second time that you're going to cite them, or that you're going to include them in a citation, that's when you're allowed to use et al. Same thing if you're doing this in the form of a parenthetical. The second time that you do it, it's okay to use et al. And that would be the case for 4 authors, 5 authors, but the rules change completely when you get to 6 authors or more. When you have 6 authors or more, you can just automatically pick the first author and include the words et al. Followed by the year. And that's important to note because that's how it should be in all your cases. Some of you were writing all the authors in your citations, in all your paragraphs. Some of you were using it all before. Just keep in mind that, again, the first time you write them, if it's 5 authors or less, make sure that you are writing out all of their names. If it's 6 authors or more, it's okay to go straight to first author followed by et al. The final thing I want to talk about tonight in these last 4 minutes is about opinions versus facts versus absolutes. Now, in academic writing, one of the key concepts is if I'm going to state something as a fact, I can say to you, online learning is great. Online learning is wonderful. That's my opinion, right? In my mind, I think that it's more of a fact than an opinion, but in academics or in academic situations, it's important to be able to back up your claim. So you have to be very careful in your writing and making sure that you're not making absolutes where you have no proof or when it's really an opinion. So for example, these are some of the quotes that I paraphrased from some of your papers, just to kind of make this point as clear as possible. One item was all students cheat. There was a few of you that wrote a paper on plagiarism. This is an FYI, seems to be a hot topic. But the fact that someone said all students cheat. Do all students cheat? I would disagree with that. I think I would disagree with that. So if you're going to say that, maybe you have to qualify that and say, many students cheat based on the research from blah, 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 blah. In other words, bring up some citations. Show me proof. Who said that? If you're going to make an opinion and you're going to push it as fact, bring up some citations. Show us who else has said this so that at least we can consider the fact that this is not something that you pull out of thin air. Online learning is a benefit. Okay, that's great. Well, again, there could be somebody who will disagree with me on that. Show me the proof. Show me the citations. The other one in particular, and this should be a rule for any of you, the moment that you start using a percentage, a statistic of any kind, there has to be a citation. Some of you wrote things like 38% of users agree that plagiarism is an issue. Or one person, I think, wrote like 33% of students that took online courses, did not persist. Who said that? That sounds like it's from a study, so that means there should be a citation. And instructors don't like online learning. Oh boy. Like that one, I just said, that's a generalization because I like online learning and I think I do it pretty well. Then again, I've been doing it for a long time. Maybe it's not so much about making absolutes, but saying there are many instructors who don't like online training. And this is agreed upon by the works of Jimenez, Smith, Jones, and Diaz, 2017. The point is citation, citation, citation. And even if it's not related to your topic, like if you're writing about plagiarism, but you want to make a general statement about how all students, how many students cheat, and here are the reasons why, it should be backed up by research. It shouldn't be your opinion. I'm not asking you for an opinion piece, and in a lot of academic writing, we're not asking you for an opinion piece. We're asking you for research. Back it up with research claims and with researched data. So be very careful and make sure that before you start making absolutes, you can use words to qualify things such as many students, some students, or students who are in, pre-K, in urban areas, whatever that qualification is, before you start making absolutes like all students cheat. Be very careful about that, folks. With that, that kind of brings us to the end of our presentation today. But overall, these are things that you can easily correct. These are not things that are earth-shattering per se, but hopefully this is giving you some food for thought on how to write your future papers. In the meantime, email me if you have any questions, folks. Talk to you soon. Take care.